Welcome, everyone, to the next Reimagining Mobility podcast. My guest today is Thomas Huettner. He runs the AVL Technical Center in California. I'm Stephan Tarnutzer. I'm responsible for AVL's Mobility Technologies Corporation in the US. Thomas, maybe to start out with, you've been now in California running the California Tech Center for us for a little bit over a year.
Yep.
What do you see the major differences between California and, let's say, Michigan, where you were last first?
The main difference I see is speed. Coming through my career more from a traditional engineering space and now being involved in all the new electrification technologies, all the new mobility technologies, and working with a lot of startups, which are obviously out here in California, speed is a tremendous difference. Sometimes things need to happen from one day to the next, right? Sometimes a customer calls, can you do something for me? Can you do a test tomorrow? Yeah, when we say yes, the car shows up a few hours later and the PO is here an hour later, and the next day we do it. I would say this is a huge difference. Another huge difference is, and this is even a greater difference to Europe than to Michigan, is there is no crazy idea. There is no crazy idea. Every idea is good, right? And speak it out, spin it. And yeah, sometimes it turns out to be a good idea. Well, then you set yourself on a good path. And sometimes it doesn't turn out to be a good idea, but that's okay too.
Okay, so sort of the go fast and fail fast mentality, and then regroup again. So very much an agile loop of consistently reinventing and redoing things, right?
Yep.
So if you compare, and you already brought Europe in, which is great, because that would have been my next question, but if you compare that now, because you were in China too for us at one point. So if you now compare China to, let's say, just specifically California, but kind of play with China, Europe, let's say the US as one, Michigan or Detroit, and California. So if you take those four different areas, what are some of the interesting things that you've learned that are just different in how people in the mobility space are doing business with us, and how we as an organization have adapted ourselves to those different regions and those different customers?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's when you compare the US with Europe and China, the way the industry works, the way projects work, to some degree is related to the cultures there as well, right? And having had the advantage of having had jobs in the US, now in California, in Europe, in China, the key differences for me are, I think America is the most innovative, right? When you think about where most of the inventions come from, well, it's here in the US. Europe strikes me as a place which is innovative as well, but Europe is the strength is to perfect things, right? To make things better and better, refine them. China is very good in making things, right? And we see that, right? When we the things we buy, right? Most of the time when a lot of manufacturing is involved, is all made in China, right? China doesn't strike me as the place of the greatest innovation, right? But obviously they're very good in manufacturing. So this is sort of the differences I see, right? Innovation from the US, perfectionists, the Europeans, the manufacturers in Asia.
There you go. Yeah, that's good. I like that. That's good. So maybe a little bit of more of a provocative question. Would California be an e-mobility technology leader without Tesla?
Yeah, Tesla obviously is pretty dominant. Tesla made the e-mobility, made the electric car popular. It helped it caused the breakthrough of the electric vehicle. We see a lot of alternative companies here in California. Now, if they all make it, is a big question. And when I'm very honest, I struggle to answer that, right? There might be some who probably make it and some are already on a very good path. Now, Rivian, for example, although I'm not quite sure if you can categorize them as a truly California company because they are very active, and I think their origin was in Michigan. But they are building up a lot of capacity here in California. I mean, they demonstrated already, they made it. Now there are some other upcoming ones. They seem to have attractive product. So it could well be they make it. There are some others where you kind of struggle to see it, but it's difficult to answer, to be honest. Yeah. I think the market.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, I thought for myself several weeks ago, I don't know why, out of the blue, the thought came up about if Tesla wouldn't have started in California, and if Tesla wouldn't have made it to the point where now they're, in my opinion, the leading EV producer, maybe even ADAS technology producer, right? Would California have all these other startups, or would it be still Detroit, or would it be another city, right, in the US? Or can Tesla really be considered the ones that brought the mobility space into California? I'm not talking technology. I think in NVIDIA, for example, or maybe some of the LiDAR companies or other type of technology or compute platform companies wouldn't be in California. I think they're already there. They were there before Tesla was. But I'm just saying from a vehicle perspective, designing, producing, et cetera, vehicles. If Tesla wouldn't have been there, would some of these other startups that you've mentioned even have a location or a significant location in California, right?
Yeah, Tesla certainly was a trailblazer. I'm absolutely convinced about that. But I think there are some other factors as well which contribute to that, right? That is emission legislation, a focus on environmental issues, right? So that also helps with green technology and electrification. And when we look at the current breakthrough of e-technology, especially in the mobility sector, I think it also needed to be an outsider who started that. Because the big OEMs, or at least that's my opinion, when the market works, when everybody is in a sort of comfortable space, there is maybe not that much willingness to completely change your business model, right? Your technology base, right? It's a huge investment you need to make, right? And big OEMs, traditional OEMs, they are probably very comfortable in a space when they know they have a long-term perspective of making money. So when somebody now comes in from the outside and disrupts that, right? I think that triggered all the movement we have now. Because to be honest, I think the key achievement of Tesla is, I think Tesla made the electric car sexy. I don't know. It's if that is the right word. It's a bit inappropriate, but that's the case. And I think it had to be an outsider to disrupt the industry and to shake it up as we see it now. So now to answer your question, I think the situation was more favorable for that on the West Coast to occur.
True. Yeah. And I think what you're alluding to too, which you mentioned before, is the speed, right? The speed at which Tesla, now the other startups, are moving, in turn, stepped up the competitive spirit of the traditional OEMs, not just in the US, but I think globally as well, to recognize that if you don't move fast, you're going to be left behind, right? So, so to speak, the fast is the new normal type of thing. So yeah, it's good. So maybe to move into the next question, what do you see as the advantage for us at AVL to have a technical center, your technical center in California? Is it because we need to be close to the customer? Is it because we need to learn some of that speed, some of that going fast, some of that California engineering mentality, that outside of the box thinking, that what you mentioned before, there's never a wrong idea. Let's give it a try. Let's go. Is it all of those? Is it something different? Why do you see it so important that we have a technology center there?
Multiple reasons. One is related to the goals of our owner, right, Professor List. He wants to have a location close to his key customers. Now, with the EV market, all the new electric vehicle companies coming up here on the West Coast, I think it's key that we are close to them. And we see an advantage of that, right? We engage with them. They come to us, right, for engineering services, for test services. So that's one key element. The other element is, I think AVL can learn a lot from this atmosphere out here, right? From this spirit of innovation, the culture of speed. I think AVL as an organization is already well underway with all those trends, but being out here and being part of it, right, and us then driving that spirit into the organization, I think is also key. And then another element which I see is important, there is a lot of technology developed out here, which is maybe not necessarily directly coming out of the automotive space, right? But it could be applied to the automotive space. So being out here and being closer to all those companies who develop those sort of technologies, right, and seeing that more firsthand, I think is another big advantage.
No, very good. So you're a traditional powertrain person, right? Engineering, you've done work for us in the traditional powertrain space, and then until you took the reassignment to go to California, lead our group out there. So with your background in traditional powertrain development, what do you see the commonality between traditional powertrain development and e-mobility development, and what do you see as differences?
Yeah, what do I see as differences? I think there is a lot of, how should I say, maybe fear in the engineering community who is coming from the traditional space, right? Engines, transmissions, traditional powertrains, about this the new technologies emerging now. I always think we are all good engineers, right? And we all come from first principles. When we understand the first principles, when we go back to physics, right, we apply math and we apply all the tools we have, right? Here in EVL, we have fantastic tools, and all our engineers, they know how to use them. I think that switch is not that hard. It's you just need to make your mind free, right? You need to accept the change is coming, and there's no way around it. It's very clear where the future goes, and focus on that, and it will be good.
Okay,
we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the spirit of this podcast about, again, reimagining mobility, what do you see as the next thing coming out of California that's pushing and not only reimagining it, but actually reinventing it or bringing in a new dawn of mobility, right? We're talking here about reimagining things, but let's take it a step further past the imagined stage. What is coming out of California that you see? Is it flying cars? Is it fuel cell powered airplanes? Is it electric airplanes that I know your team is already working on for many years? What is it that you see in the mobility space? Anything from passenger vehicles to heavy duty trucks, on road, off road, on the ground, in the air, on the water? What do you see?
Yeah. I mean, some things I can see, and this is actually not something that is not known already, right? It's you alluded to this already. Electric aviation is on the edge of becoming possible. So we see a lot of activity there, supplying battery system, propulsion systems, engineering parts of airplanes for electric flight. That is something, and that is fixed wing aircrafts, but that is also eVTOLs, right? There is a lot of hype, a lot of movement around eVTOLs. So there is a lot of activity out here. But this is already common knowledge, right? This is this is something which is certainly going to come. We also see a renewed interest in fuel cells, and I have to say, not so much in the mobility space at the moment. It's more in stationary power. But I would not exclude that this will move itself into the mobility space as well, especially when you think about the limitations of battery electric flight, right? When you think about an aircraft, the biggest enemy of anything going up into the air is weight. And we still struggle there with the weight of batteries and the energy that we can provide. Nevertheless, we mastered the technology now of electric flight. I bet on improvements in battery cell technology over the next few years. So when we have mastered the technology, then to switch out the battery cell technology, I think this is just a very small step. So those are the things which are certainly on the path to reality. Autonomous driving, there's a lot of activity out here too, of course. This has, in my view, a huge potential to disrupt the industry yet again. Now the shift to electrification is a big disruption, but the arrival of autonomous driving, I think, has probably the potential to disrupt the industry even more, because the focus of vehicles might not be the vehicle itself anymore, right? The propulsion system probably doesn't become so important anymore, right? The vehicle itself, as long as it features certain necessary elements, doesn't maybe not so important anymore either. Fully autonomous vehicles, I think it's all going to be about the features inside of the cabin. This is where the money is going to be. And that is a trend you can see quite clearly. We as a company, we currently focus primarily on what makes a vehicle move. We also focus on the ADAS technology, but when you have a fleet of fully self-driving cars, I think all those elements, they will become supporting systems. Yeah,
it's interesting you're bringing up technologies, because I just read a news article this morning in Automotive News talking about in China, the buyers of EVs, how they're essentially looking away from US and even Europe designed and built and available products, and look much more to the Chinese brands, not because they're suddenly better, but they're appealing to them much more on a technology space. And to me, this is so obvious, and I've been saying it for a long time. This what I look at as technology leadership, right? It's not anymore only the looks of a car, not only anymore what kind of engine or now e-motor or battery you have under the hood or somewhere in the car now. It's now really what technology is in the vehicle. It's the features. It's how do we lead with new technologies? How do we lead with new innovative designs from a feature perspective, not from a design perspective as it relates to the looks of the vehicle, right? I just recently drove the Tesla Plaid as an example, and it took me 5 minutes literally to find where can I put the car into park and into reverse, right? And it's now all on the screen. It's a software, a swiping motion now, blinkers now. You don't have the traditional blinker system anymore. You have buttons on the steering wheel. I mean, it's amazing. But yeah, it's interesting to bring this up and how important that is. So I completely agree.
But just when you think about a fully autonomous car, right? Your e-motor, your inverter, your chassis, it becomes all secondary, right? Yeah. But you think about all the features you then could incorporate in the cabin to entertain, to occupy, whatever. There is no limit. There is no limit, right?
Very good. Thank you, Thomas, for your time.
Okay, yeah, thanks for organizing that.
Thanks for listening to Reimagine Mobility Podcast. If you like this episode, please subscribe and tell a friend.